And now on to introducing today's speaker. We are delighted to welcome back Kornelia Gabrinska. Kornelia has presented two excellent programs to us previously. The video of one on the archetype of death in selected fairy tales can be found on our YouTube channel. Kornelia is a psychologist and a Jungian analyst working in private practice in Fairbanks, Alaska. Born and raised in Poland, she obtained her analytic training from the Research and Training Center for Depth Psychology, according to C.G. Jung and Marie-Louise von Franz in Switzerland. She has written and presented on various Jungian topics, including the interpretation of selected Inuit folktales, the symbolism of death in selected fairy tales, the psychological meaning represented by alchemical stages, and the importance of communication from the unconscious contained in dreams. She was instrumental in founding a C.G. Jung Society of Northern Alaska more than a decade ago. The Society hosts a biennial Jungian Midnight Sun Conference. Boy, would I love to go to that. And promotes Jungian ideas through lectures and workshops. Please join me now in welcoming Kornelia Gabrinska.
Thank you, Judy, for this wonderful introduction. And thank you to the board of the club for inviting me. I hope the third time is the charm and everything goes smoothly today. I hope you can hear me. Am I?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. And so, why Baba Yaga? I must say that the topic interested me because Baba Yaga was an important figure in my childhood. As a child growing up in Poland, those fairy tales with Baba Yaga were circulating around us, and we've heard them frequently. And as children, we were told, watch out, if you don't behave, Baba Yaga is going to get you. So she was a very frightening figure in our imagination. But I would like to start my presentation with a video clip from Tragedy of Macbeth from the film director Joel Cohen. And it's a good introduction to the Western Baba Yagas, to the Western witches. So let's see if I can share this. Go to. Here's the video. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, now it's gray screen.
It's.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. There it comes.
There's no sound from them.
No sound? Oh.
Oh, is there supposed to be sound? So you needed to put a setting.
Oh, I think I have to take my out.
No, there's a setting you have to click off to say that you want to share the sound.
Oh, where do I go to do that?
Um,
Let me just turn off these AirPods.
no, that's not what it's, yeah.
No, not from the video.
Oh,
So you have to go, do you see I wish I could put mine on, then I would see what it looks like. The easiest thing would be to turn it off, and then as you turn it on, when you click share screen, before you tell it to share, you will look and you'll see there's places where you need to click off share sound and share video. So as you click that little share screen button.
okay.
Okay,
Yep.
now don't click on the
Share
desktop.
sound. It says share sound.
So click that,
Okay.
right? And then
Yep.
there's another one for the video, I think. There's two things you can click. But maybe that's the only important one, is probably the sound. Okay, so now try that and see if that works. And then share it. See if that works.
Just pass on the thing.
Enter your password. Enter my password. Maybe I.
Maybe just cancel the thing.
Let's see.
It's just say you're not going to use it.
Okay, well, I suppose I can't use the video then.
Why, you didn't get the sound? Did you tell it to do the sound?
I did. Let me see if it will play.
Ali doing.
Yep, there it is.
And
Okay, so let me
the weird
do from the
sisters
beginning.
and
Yeah, go from the beginning.
And there's no sound.
Right, it's just starting. Is there supposed to be sound now?
Yes, you hear the sound?
No.
You've never heard it the whole
Well,
time?
we heard it before. We heard it before. So is there supposed to be sound right now?
So it must be that.
There it is. It's there.
Killing swine. Sister. Yeah. Show me. Show me. Here I sailor's thumb. Wrecked as homeward he did come. A drum. A drum. Like a best. You're civil to the sail. And like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do. I'll drain him, dry as hay. Sleep shall neither night nor day hang upon his penthouse lid. He shall live, a man forbid. Wearisome nights, 9 times 9, shall he dwindle, peak, and hide. The weird sisters, hand in hand, toasters of the sea and land, thus to go about, thrice to thine, and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Peace. The charms wound up.
Ah, foul and fair a day I have not seen. How far is it, Forest? So these, so withered and so wild in their attire that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it. Live you, or are you aught that man may question? Speak, if you can. What are you?
All hail Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. All hail Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Hodor. All hail Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter.
Are ye fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly ye show? If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favor nor your hate.
Lesser than Macbeth and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo, and Macbeth. All hail.
Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more. I know I am Thane of Glamis, but how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief. Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. The earth hath bubbles as the water has, and these are of them.
Well, I'm sorry about the sound.
It worked. It worked.
Uh, uh, well, the Western witches, of course, I'm going to talk about the witch from the East, and witches have a lot in common, like being able to foretell the future. And they're able to transform, like you've seen. They transform, these witches in particular that we watched transform into ravens. But today I wanted to share with you a Polish version of a fairy tale called, the common name is Frog Princess. And to understand what I'm talking about, introduction, I thought I share with you the bare bones of the tale. It's sort of like 6-7 paragraphs, and it doesn't go, in the second half of the program, we will go into the tale and you will hear all the details of the tale. But for right now, I just wanted to outline this most important elements of the tale, because I'm going to be talking about Baba Yaga in the context of these, using these details. So we go back to share, and I go to the slides. No, it's this one.
That's the video. Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So as I said, these are the most important elements in this fairy tale, and also what I'm going to do when interpreting this tale for you, we will see how much time we will have left to go into all the details, but it parallels a Russian fairy tale called Tsarevna Lyagushka. That's the Russian title, which means the frog princess. Okay. There is an old king with 3 sons. Now, this is very typical for this kind of fairy tales. To choose a successor, the king orders the sons to find wives by shooting arrows in different directions. 2 elder sons' arrows land at the doors of 2 young women from rich families. The 3rd son's arrow lands in swampy lake next to a frog who speaks to the prince and tells him to marry her. The tale moves to the king who orders. Next. Oh, well, we've skipped some. Sorry. Okay, the tale moves to the king who orders the princesses to perform 3 tasks. They are to weave a carpet, bake a cake, and present at a reception at the palace. The husband of the winner will be the future king. The youngest son's wife wins all 3 trials. When the king hears the story of the woman transforming, of the woman's transformation from his son, he advises his son to go quickly and burn the frog's skin. When the frog's wife learns about it, she despairs and shrieks, then turns into a duck and flies away. The prince goes to search for her. In his wandering, he comes to Baba Yaga, to first Baba Yaga, who then sends him to her sister, also a Baba Yaga, and then he's sent to a 3rd sister, Baba Yaga. At each house, his wife flies in as a duck. He is told to grab her and hold onto her, regardless of what she turns herself into. But when she turns into a spindle, he is to break it in half. First time she turns to a dove, then a falcon, then a snake, which the prince drops promptly, and she turns back into a duck and flies away. At the second Baba Yaga's house, the same happens, except at the end, she turns into an eel, which, as you may know, is a fish that with an elongated body reminding one of a snake. And he drops the eel also. The 3rd time, he holds on, and she quickly turns into a spindle, which he breaks, and she appears in her body. Then they go back to the king over the crystal bridge that she conjures. She also magically creates a golden carriage and a big entourage party to accompany them to the king's palace. The king is overjoyed to see them return. He names the youngest son his successor, and that's happy end of this. Oh. So, as you see, Baba Yaga comes into the story quite late, and we don't learn much about her from just one fairy tale. That is why I used about 30 Russian fairy tales and several Polish ones to put together the material on Baba Yaga. Now, let me explain where I'm coming from on the use of fairy tales and why they are important to us psychologically. Keeping in mind that the goal of second half of life is to focus our inner life and to connect with our psychic roots, it behooves us to foster a relationship with the unconscious. One option is to look at the patterns found in old fairy tales. Those patterns speak of possible development of such relationships. Today, the central theme is discovering and deepening our knowledge of these patterns and learning more about the archetype of the feminine, because Baba Yaga is, of course, the dark aspect of the feminine, presents that aspect. Also, she represents nature itself. She is a force that brings life into the material world. She's also a death mother and takes life. In the tales of Baba Yaga, we meet with an iconic dark goddess. She appears as a crone, a hermit who lives in deep woods. She's aggressive, dangerous, and terrifying. I have here a quote from go back to sharing. Here is a quote from Von Franz, who wrote about or mentioned Baba Yaga in several of her books. So Von Franz says, Baba Yaga can be good or bad. As an image of the feminine, she has both a light and dark side. She's full of the power of destruction, of desolation, and of chaos. But at times, she is a helpful figure. And so here's an image. Here's an image of Baba Yaga that this image comes from a fairy tale book illustrated by artist Kinuko Kraft, and the title of this book is Vasilisa the Wise. As you can see, this picture inspires awe, and it seems to me like it would be very difficult to meet with this particular representation of this dark feminine. What's important to me in this presentation is to show you that Baba Yaga represents a living reality of the psyche, that even though she goes back in time to pre-Christian times, she's a pagan goddess. She was a pagan goddess then. She is still alive in the psyche. And to speak more about the living reality of psyche, I want to bring what Jung wrote in a letter to an unknown person towards the end of his life. Jung wrote that he thought the acceptance of living reality of the psyche is very difficult. He said it is like telling someone there's a rattlesnake in your pocket, and then the person says with doubt, oh, is that so? Edinger, in his book Transformation of the God Image, adds, that is the nature of reality of the psyche, and when it dawns on you, then it has the quality of a rattlesnake. In other words, it can surprise you and it can bite you. Jung points out that when we think that the creativity belongs to us, it is not so. Jung says the creativity belongs to this living psyche, to the self. When we fall in love, whether it's a person or an idea, it is something that comes from the living psyche. And clearly that's something that speaks to us, and then we think it's us, it belongs to us. I don't know, I hope I am making it clear, the distinction between the ego consciousness and the collective unconscious when I speak of the living reality of the psyche. So we could say that fairy tales speak to us in a soul language. Certainly it's not a language of our rational world where we have all this transformation happening. The transformation from frog into a woman, and then transformation from woman into a duck. That does not belong to the conscious world of rationality. In fact, such transformations point out to a mystery and to the fact that our conscious mind, our ego, has difficulty in coming to terms with it. Many years ago, I had a dream that basically stated let me get out of the stop sharing. Here we are. So the dream that I had many years ago basically said that my rational ego is faced with a mystery and it has difficult time to comprehend it. It's a very simple and short dream. So in the dream, I am in an empty, large room with wooden floors, like a ballet studio. In the middle of the room is a single wooden chair. Suddenly, the chair starts rotating slowly. I am in awe and must go to share this with others. Even in the dream, my mind had difficulty to accept that there was no rational explanation of what I was witnessing. And that meant that some other power was making itself visible to me. It's certainly less dramatic than a burning bush, yet my ego was thrown out of its normal mode of comprehension and had difficulty in absorbing this message. I mean, our ego wants to understand, why is this happening? That's physics. We've studied physics. We understand the basic laws of physics. Going back to what I'm looking for in fairy tales, in particular, I'm looking at dialogues, exchanges that are found in fairy tales as examples of communication between consciousness and the unconscious. Also, these patterns are very similar to what we find when we are looking at dreams. Frequently, dreams remind us of this or that motif from some fairy tale, and it is helpful that spontaneously archetypal material shows up, aiding us in the amplification. Using fairy tale material to amplify is useful, as many people still remember the favorite fairy tales of their childhood. It may not be so in the future if the fairy tale material falls out of the consciousness, as fewer and fewer people will read, tell, share the fairy tales. Let's hope that that's not going to happen, because we know that there's the psychological richness and deep wisdom in the fairy tales. So the hero, the protagonist in the fairy tales represents our consciousness, and I will go into sharing again. A lot of sharing. And here is a quote from von Franz that speaks of what that hero consciousness means to us. Von Franz describes a hero as the aspect of the self which is concerned with building up the ego, with keeping it going and enlarging it. The hero is an archetypal model and pattern for the right kind of behavior. The right kind of behavior would be one that is expressing the energetic field in the unconscious or in the agreement with the unconscious. It means that as long as the hero, the ego, is working in accordance with the unconscious, there will be forward psychological movement. I think this is really important quote, because the self being concerned with building of the ego, it's wanting to enlarge it, and that's, you know, we psychologists, we analysts, we are really concerned about the ego being able to accept new archetypal material. Also interesting in this quote to me is the fact that von Franz mentions energetic field. In Baba Yaga tales, churning, spinning generates such energetic field. In fact, mortar, which is the vessel that she travels in, a vessel, and I will go and elaborate on this quite soon. A vessel where such churning occurs, it is called by von Franz the disintegrator of matter and of ego consciousness. So breaking up matter into small elements, and in psychological language, sometimes we really look at our imagination, what our fantasy brings, what our dreams bring, and sometimes small details can be the most important elements that can help us, sort of could be the kernels of what is to come. Working with Baba Yaga tales made me aware how different elements of the unconscious want to become conscious. Tale after tale. Let me stop sharing. Tale after tale. Something wants to come to consciousness. From a psychological viewpoint, we could say the unconscious itself finds the need to enter consciousness. It is as though it desires consciousness. It could be a need for compensation, for bringing balance, for introducing something new that is needed. It brings to mind the myth of the goddess Thesis, Phys, Thesis, who became trapped in matter. The specific idea of a divine or spiritual element being trapped in a lower material existence becomes problematic because of the entrapment. Thesis apparently cannot change herself into a duck and fly away. It also reminds me of an Arthurian tale where the answer to a riddle, what is it that woman, the feminine, desires most? The answer is to have their own choice. Conscious world, which the ego appetites also has different desires, whether for renewal, for example, the king who represents the consciousness sends his sons to search for water of life, to renew himself. Whether it's for renewal or finding a new balance or a new solution or more power. Most fairy tales I reviewed for this presentation are about how to bring in the feminine, the new feminine, or a treasure, or a magic creature or magic object, and such. Something new is needed, and a quest begins, ending in bringing that element. What's needed in the acceptance, and going back to the living psyche, the reality of the psyche, what is needed in acceptance of a new unconscious material in ego consciousness is a flexible ego, an ego that can suspend its judgment, its rationality, temporarily, of course. An ego that formed an ego self-access. To approach the boundary between the realm of consciousness and the unconscious, to perceive one world as divided into two is difficult and requires a good ego self-connection. We think we live in this one world, in the rational, in the material, and we pay attention to the outer realm. But there is the soul part that yearns to the connection to the other, the spiritual dimension. When we are closed off to the inner world of the psyche, or denying the existence, or its existence altogether, our lives become impoverished and without meaning. The prevailing attitude of the outer world is that the inner world either doesn't exist or it doesn't matter. Jungian psychology differs with that view and searches for a deeper meaning in life and in deeper connection to the unconscious. The cultivated attitude is curiosity and openness to messages from the unconscious and finding ways to integrate them into our lives. We witness new therapies using drugs like ketamine and other psychedelics to assist individuals in experiencing the other realm. For many, to have such an experience under clinical medical supervision makes such an experience more acceptable and safe. Fairy tales can be helpful in the process of opening. Edinger suggests another way to look at the unconscious. He says, if we could see it as a subtle fluid that permeates everything in and out, that it permeates our bodies, I think this image speaks to me, and it helps to see that maybe that's the world in fairy tales. The subtle fluid, the unconscious, permeates everything. It's sort of like we are all in one in this big pond of fluid, subtle fluid. When our ego is not able to integrate a content into our consciousness, a regression occurs. We return to our previous ego state before the impossible, the magical content entered our field of consciousness. The ego returns to a state as it was before the incident, as though the incident never happened. I've read somewhere that when Aboriginal people were first shown a photograph, they were not able to see it because they had, in their mind, had no conception of what a photograph could be, and that's exactly what this means. That if something is too much, too extraordinary, too much like impossible, our mind will edit it, and we will. It's almost like a regression will happen. The motif of the king, Tsar, telling his son to burn the frog skin is an example of regression. The rational world represented by the king cannot accept the fact that the wife of his son was a frog. The skin is burned, thus erasing the connection between the frog and the human-looking princess. Burning is a process of alchemical calcinatio. Here it is transforming, reducing the object into ash. The idea of a frog transforming into a woman is impossible in our rational mind. It is similar to the difficulty I had in accepting that there's invisible power that can rotate a chair without my mind, my rational mind, being blown away in protest. When an element from the unconscious enters the conscious realm, in our tale, the frog princess turning into a woman, a split into opposites occurs. Here, the frog princess, representing an archetype, has one foot in the material conscious life, the other foot in the unconscious. After all, she flies away, and later she transforms into many forms. This is another example of the unconscious being a subtle fluid. The ego has difficulty with being fluid. It wants structure and time frames and boundaries. Psychoanalysis recognizes that the unconscious speaks to us in many forms, such as ailments, such as obsessions, compulsions, neuroses, and other various medical conditions, but also in accidents. But let's not forget the positive events, for example, winning a prize or choosing the right partner. As an ancient alchemist said, that's when the fortune smiles at you. But let's return to Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is not the central figure in any of the tales. However, when she enters the scene, her power is felt. She's an iconic figure known throughout Eastern Europe. In fairy tales, she's an adversary force to be reckoned with. Typically, the hero is a male or female figure of various social standing, from prince to peasant, from young woman to a queen. and they're always on a quest. That is important because of the element that the hero must be in agreement with the unconscious. It's only that figure, she becomes the hero, that continues in a tale. All the other figures, let's say when they are the three brothers, they get caught. They do not continue on the quest. But the one that is in agreement, acts in agreement with the unconscious, becomes the one who um, is there at the end of the tale. So why am I speaking of the dark side of the feminine? One reason is that I feel that the collective culture pushed women to live on the positive side, on the light side, while repressing the dark primordial side. Anthropologists, ethnographers, and historians are in general agreement that as patriarchy took over matriarchy, the many goddesses were deemed too powerful, too dark, and dangerous to the power of patriarchy, and with time they were pushed to the outer margins. Christianity, supporting patriarchy, further target any pagan remnants still carried by oral traditions. One example of silencing women, as we all know, was the Holy Inquisition. Even today, to be called a witch is to depotentiate that energy held by a woman by labeling it as negative, hostile, and maybe even dangerous. I am providing larger historical context to illustrate how this archetypal figure functioned in those different times. Still, on the edges of cultures in Russia, Ukraine, and other Slavic nations, the figure of Baba Yaga lives. She stayed alive perhaps because Christianity came late to some of those regions around the year 1000. Thus, she survived in oral history and in numerous tales. And she is, even now, an iconic figure. And I will show you some slides later. But another reason that this image is important is because, in particular, it's one expression of mother archetype, and as we know, the mother archetype represents a type of cord, a link. Jung says the real bond, she represents the real bond through which we are connected with our origins. Baba Yaga speaks to this fundamental psychological function that a family plays. As a duck or swan, the heroine flies back home. Family is the link to her origins and to our origins. Thus, we as society, the more we are disconnected from our past, the less we know of our origins, where we come from, and the more impoverished we are. When we don't know the past, we are stuck. It is like a wall that cuts us off from our past, regardless of how terrible things may have been that created that wall. Not knowing the past reduces the possibility of working through it all. Bringing pieces of trauma and integrating them in the ego consciousness is at the root of healing. Cutting parts of ourselves works as one phase of the process, alchemically called dismemberment, but it is followed by other parts of the phases of the process, like coagulatio, forming something new from the old, using the old elements. Many Jungian writers wrote about Baba Yaga. As I said, von Franz, and as I will talk about in a bit, Emma Jung, Sibylle Berghauser, Verena Kast, Marion Woodman, Laura Newton, Natalie Baratov, David Hart, and many others. I think we can maybe go to I'm not sure. Let me share, see where we are. What's the slides? So the being in agreement with the unconscious, it's as I said earlier, it's being open to what is it that the unconscious desires, wants from us. Here's a picture of Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga as the old woman, as the crone. Oh, here it is. So, von Franz says, Baba Yaga is just plain nature. If you know how to cope with her, she's all right. It is you. It is up to you which side of her you experience. She goes on to say that the problem of evil has to do with men, that evil is not only a nature phenomenon, but it depends on man's attitude and behavior. She also says that I have to sort of find myself where I am in my notes, sorry. We cannot take the figure of Baba Yaga as personal content of the unconscious, but rather as personification, what one could call nature itself, as a nature goddess. And refer to the unthinkable cruelty and murderousness of nature itself. So here we are getting to the darker side of Baba Yaga. Here's what Emma Jung said when she speaks of the dark mother figure. Such a mother figure, a dark mother figure, in contrast to a heavenly light mother, embodies the primordial feminine as a power that is heavy, dark, earthbound, a power versed in magic, and now helpful, now witch-like and uncanny, and often actually destructive. So, here's the power of the Baba Yaga being this destructive force. So in this quote, it's surprising because she knew the fairy tales of Baba Yaga, and Sibyl Berkhauser O'Hary used to tell her daughter fairy tales of Baba Yaga. And her daughter was Eva Wertenschlag, the Swiss analyst. I think I need to go back with my slides. Well, let's stop sharing. Let's stop sharing for a moment. Talking about the last quote, Sibyl O'Hary Berkhauser also said, there are some typical features about the way these dark mother figures exert their harmful and destructive influences. They generally appear to have a great appetite for human flesh, for witches will often try to eat their victims after cooking them. And you all, of course, know the Hansel and Gretel story, fairy tale. Sometimes they burn them or expose them in a freezing weather to die of cold. When friends talk about this evil and destructive side of the Baba Yaga, and she says this is sort of related to the bottom of the abyss of every human being, which is difficult for us to think about. And she continues, this is the abysmal shadow of Baba Yaga, an abyss into which one can only look with horror and then turns away. I focus here on the image of primordial and chthonic feminine because Baba Yaga's image carries those qualities. It is the basis for her archetypal power. I would like you to feel that aspect even for a moment. I think we are mostly disconnected from that aspect of the dark feminine. She is a representation of the primordial feminine. How much more primordial than that can one be? She either helps a human or eats a human. Occasionally, these dark aspects will show in dreams. And I have a clinical example. A while ago, I had a client. She was ambivalent about her work, about her marriage, and parenting. During the year I saw her, she continuously dreamed of horrible tortures and dismemberment occurring under the ground, and she was able to see it and hear. The repetitive dreams were gory and bloody. The dreamer was powerless. She couldn't do anything in her dreams. In her outer life, she was drifting away from her supportive husband and her work. She was discovering and reconnecting to a younger, wilder part of herself. And that to become uprooted like that can be very dangerous for a person. I lost track of her when she left her marriage and left her work and left the state. One would think that dark dreams that she had would be seen as a warning of psychological trauma, but her inner devils were convincing her that she had to run away from it all. So let's go back to the fairy tale. I'm using a Polish version of the Frog Princess today, and I will contrast it with the Russian-Ukrainian version, Tsarievna Lyagushka. The Polish tale comes from collection of Antoni Józef Gliński, who died in 1866 at the age of 49. His life's task was to travel to rural areas and collect tales from people. In Russia, including Ukraine, Alexander Afanasyev traveled and collected tales about the same time period. Poland was a much smaller country than Russia and Ukraine. So the villages in Russia and Ukraine were much more isolated from the center, from existing cities. And they were much less, therefore, they were less influenced by Christianity. Many remote villages had a local village woman, typically a healer, who lived on the outside of the village and collected her own herbs. She roamed the forest and searched for the rare plants. And sometimes the question is, for people living during that time in middle 1800s, was that woman who was the healer living in the woods, was she more than a healer? Was she also, I mean, yes, the image of the witch was projected on her, of course, because to heal someone was considered a magical act. There was no medicine, of course. Another aspect of Baba Yaga that called my attention is her ambivalence. She is helpful to some, and she devours others. From a conscious perspective, it is not known how she will behave. She's very much like the unconscious itself, ambivalent, unknown, unpredictable. This figure in her dark aspect is represented by snake, dragon, wolf, and others. In her light aspects, she's represented by horse, frog, duck, swan, cat, geese, and others. Baba Yaga is a trickster and a shapeshifter. She, along with Vasilisa the Wise, a very important character in Russian fairy tales, Vasilisa the Wise, Vasilisa the Brave, the Beautiful, Maria Morevna, and many other princesses from the tales. They know how to use magic and change themselves to many shapes. This ability to shapeshift indicates that they are related. They belong to the unconscious also. Further indication of that relatedness is that in many tales, those characters ask the same question Baba Yaga asks, thus making it explicit who they are, even when they are not called Baba Yaga, or even when it's not acknowledged they are related to her. It's maybe not surprised that in many fairy tales, a female character addresses Baba Yaga as grandmother, auntie, and such. They are in part related. They share some qualities with Baba Yaga. For example, knowing when to ask questions and what questions to ask. So when we go to the outer appearance, we could say her persona, we see she's portrayed as an old peasant woman. She looks, in the picture, she frequently looks like a peasant woman from mid 1800s, the time that the tales were collected. Her appearance is to blend with the peasants. She is portrayed as old, worn out, unkempt woman, a hermit and a crone. Her nose is described as squashed, broken, and hooked. She has gnarled old hands with fingers crooked and blackened from age and work. And yet, I would like to add, she's ageless because she's an archetypal figure. Her fingernails are sharp like claws. Her teeth are made of iron, and she sharpens them when expecting a meal of a human. In the Russian fairy tale, Tsaryevna Lyagushka, the following description is given. Prince Ivan went into the house and saw on the stove, on the 9th bookshelf, a Baba Yaga bony leg, nose grown into the ceiling, her snout hanging across the threshold, her tits slung up on a hook, and she was sharpening her teeth. She sharpens her teeth, iron teeth, in anticipation of a human meal. In another tale, she asks a blacksmith to make a contraption from iron that mimics voices of others. And we also thought that her claws were made out of iron. This distinctive feature of Baba Yaga is that she has one leg, one-legged, kostnaya noga, bone-legged. It seems that when a mythological figure has one eye or one hand or one leg, one eye, Odin comes to mind, who sacrifices his eye to obtain wisdom. It seems that speaks, this having just one appendage, one eye, it speaks to the connection to the unconscious, that this is the price to pay for being close to the unconscious. She doesn't need a second leg in the conscious world. She is the unconscious. She represents the unconscious. I would like to add that there are many tales in Polish tales of the devil who is lame, portrayed as lame. And of course, Hephaestus from the Greek mythology comes to mind. He is also lamed. In one tale, she has a golden leg. In another tale, she has a leg of clay. So the depiction varies from tale to tale. Baba Yaga is a hermit, lives in a hut in the dark woods. In some tales, the hut barely contains her. It seems that it is like a coffin. Let me maybe show the coffin, the image. Let's share the image of the hut. Here is the hut. So the hut stands on chicken legs. It appears that in ancient times, the tribes of Eastern Europe built platforms and covered platforms for the dead. Baba Yaga seems to follow that tradition. So on chicken legs, the hut turns around and can move, and a magical incantation is needed. And it seems that the hero always knows the right incantation. It mostly sounds like little house, turn the front to me and the back to the forest. In many tales, the hut is spinning. It's spinning around its own axis, revolving along its own center. It creates a protective circle. It's again the image of the self. The hut can move, walk, but cannot fly. For that, Baba Yaga has a mortar. I'm looking at the time. Seems like we are running out of time quickly. I wanted to say something about chickens, since it's chicken legs. Chickens in general are not considered smart birds, but they've been domesticated almost 10,000 years ago. And the Greeks believed that lions were afraid of roosters. The basilisks and cockatrice it's a creature, reptile-like creature with the upper body of a rooster. So yeah, we are. The Romans used chickens for oracles. There's a story of a commander who was on the sea waiting for the battle, and he had his chickens with him, and the oracle worked that it was said that if the chickens come and eat, then everything will turn out all right. But if they don't come out, then one should not continue and persevere. Well, this one commander was on the sea and they didn't come to eat. So he said, if you don't want to eat, maybe you want to drink. he threw them into the sea. Of course, he was heavily reprimanded afterwards, and he lost the battle immediately. So the signature question that Baba Yaga asks when somebody comes to her door, she says, "Are you here of your free will or against it? Are you doing a deed or running away from a deed?" And depending on who who is at her door, the answer is different. Of when it's a young woman, she says, "Oh, grandmother, please help me. I was sent here to get fire," let's say. When it's the Prince Ivan, or another male character, he says, "Oh, you old hag, give me some food and drink, and then ask me questions." And Baba Yaga is okay with that. So the assertiveness of the male character seems to be very important for what will happen next. Here, okay, let's move to the martyr and pestle. Oops. This is an iconic picture from an artist, Bilibin. He illustrated many Baba Yaga fairy tales in early 1900s. And we see Baba Yaga flying in her mortar with a broom made out of birch. And look at all those poisonous mushrooms growing down there, emphasizing that Baba Yaga is a dangerous figure. Here's another image of Baba Yaga flying in another type of mortar. And this is what Von Franz says about the vessel. A vessel is a feminine symbol. The Baba Yaga has a round vessel. She sits in a vessel that serves to pulverize matter. The ego, in its negative aspect, has been pulverized, has reached the end of its selfish willfulness, and has to give in to greater power, the greater power being the unconscious. Here's a modern version of Baba Yaga. So picture a mortar as a round, it's frequently, when it's in use, it's a round stone dish with a pestle. And when you are grinding, the grinding notion is a motion of going round and around, going round and around. So that's the motion of circumambulation. When we talk about the self, we talk about a spiral, round and around we move, gathering the pieces of who we are, integrating those pieces. So that's also the healing that comes from that circumambulation. A mortar and pestle are used as simple tools that are used to crush and grind. They are used in kitchen, laboratory, and pharmacy. They've been used since Stone Age. In the folklore, Baba Yaga is described as flying through the forest, standing inside this large wooden mortar called stupa, holding long wooden pestle in one hand to remove obstacle in front of her, and using the broom in her other hand to sweep and remove the traces behind her. It's strange that she uses such a contraption to travel, but clearly it's very this mortar is symbolic of labors of women working with herbs and plants and preparing food and medicine. So von Franz calls the mortar an instrument of contrition, where the ego feels its sins, feels remorse, and is penitent. The ego, von Franz says, the ego in its negative aspects has to be pulverized. It has to reach the end of its selfish willfulness. It has to give in to greater powers. It seems strange that Baba Yaga flies in such a vessel that pulverizes matter into tiny particles. It's almost like a super collider that she's riding in. And the churning, spinning motion again creates an energetic field, a protective circle. This movement that emphasizes rotating, the churning in the mortar, the spinning hat, spinning around its own axis, revolving along its own center. It's like the dance of the dervishes dancing around and spinning around and around. All lead us to the image of the self. The frog princess at the end turns into a spindle, which has to be broken by the prince. We could say she emerges out of the self when the time is right. Baba Yaga is also the keeper of light and fire. Her hat is surrounded by skulls with light emerging from them. In the fairy tale Vasilisa the Brave, a young stepdaughter is sent by her evil stepmother to obtain fire from Baba Yaga. And in that tale, Baba Yaga gives her one of the skulls with the fire in it. Another aspect of Baba Yaga is her dissolving aspect. She represents death, dissolution, and dismemberment. Look at the skulls on her fence posts, her missing leg, her iron teeth. Sometimes she's toothless. Yard full of human bones. She also has 3 pairs of hands doing chores in her hut. There are also 3 riders, the white one presenting the day, the morning, the red one, the red rider presenting the day, and the black rider presenting the night. And she says, they are my riders. Dismemberment as alchemical process occurs when the need for a new configuration to manifest to a dramatic transformation from death to a new life. It all comes from collective unconscious, this need. So it's the dismemberment is in the service of the self, you could say. So Baba Yaga is dismembered. She's missing one leg. She's dismembered and she dismembers. In the service of dismemberment, pieces come together afterwards, but as psychological aspects and components in different configurations, also altered by the encounter. So when she's helpful, then we are aided in forward movement. Perhaps that is how we know we are released from her presence, because we can move forward. Let me go back to our sharing. And here are the quotes that I read. And here's the aspect, the symbolic aspect of death, transformation through death. The death of an archetypal figure is its transformation, for archetypes in themselves cannot die. They're eternal, instinctive, inherited disposition. However, they can change one form of symbolic appearance for another. If they lose their human shape, it means they do not function anymore in a form which can easily be integrated into human life. This is why prince cannot hold onto the princess when she is in a form of a duck or swan or snake or eel. Von Franz, this is from Von Franz, from the feminine fairy tales. Von Franz sees Baba Yaga figure as a demon of death who brings the ultimate contrition. She's a great alchemist who reduces everything to its essence, grinds people to their essence. Since the unconscious is ambivalent, it might not be known what its design is until the conflict comes head to head. Literally, a head comes off, most frequently of the hero, but sometimes of Baba Yaga herself. In several fairy tales, Baba Yaga is killed, mostly by burning in fire, but also in a fight with a hero, where she's tricked. And of course, since she is an archetypal figure, her death in those fairy tales means she is just transformed. Here we have a picture from Vasilisa the Brave, and you see Vasilisa walking with the skull that Baba Yaga gave her with the fire inside it. And you see the fans of other skulls. And in the fairy tale, it says when the hero comes that one fence post is empty, waiting for his skull, presumably. This is from Andreas Jones, who wrote a monogram called Baba Yaga. And here are all the different names that Baba Yaga has been known in the country of East Europe. So Yaga Ya, Iga, Ega, Yagabova, Yaga, Yagi Baba, Yagivovna, Yagisna, Yagishna, Yaga Ya, Babica, Aga Gnishna, also Baba Yenza, Jerzy Baba, Baba Drashna, Drashnica, and Izbus Baba. I thought I'd show you the map just so you could see the countries that the fairy tale is known from. So here's all Russia and Ukraine and Poland and all these other countries where the Baba Yaga figure is known. Now, Baba Yaga is an iconic figure, and in Soviet Union, you see a stamp from, she's portrayed, Vasilisa the Brave is on a stamp. And also on cards. Here's a hat, and here's Baba Yaga's card of ace. Now, the figure of Baba Yaga has become very popular in the Western countries too. There are numerous books. If you ever looked it up, you would see that there is a plethora of books with Baba Yaga in the title. I'm not going to mention all of them, but it's just this is I use this Egyptian picture of weighing the soul to show the aspect of Baba Yaga as a judge. When a hero comes to her door, she makes a judgment whether the person is going to live and continue, or whether the person deserves her help or not. Also, she has two sisters. So there are always three Baba Yagas, and we know of the three goddesses in mythologies. Here's the famous one, the three fates: one weaves, one measures, and one cuts. And that's very much what Baba Yaga does too. She makes those decisions. We've talked about her as death, as the killer. Again, that's an aspect in Hindu mythology. And here's a modern version of a witch from the sea witch, Ursula. This is a picture drawn right after the Second World War of a woman who survived the war. And you can see that she's flying on a cross, and the cross is sort of shaped like a bird. An experience of deep trauma that she survived. Okay, let's stop sharing. Talking about returning to the name, you know, that the fact that the name consists of two words, Baba and Yaga. Baba means typically old woman, but Yaga in old languages, when the etymologists go back, they come with the word yaga that relates to illness, malice, maliciousness, cruelty, spitefulness, horror, fright, and shivers. So not so positive, not so positive. I mean, this is why we are talking about the dark figure of Baba Yaga. Now, in Polish language, there are several words that are describing Baba Yaga, or a witch. Let's say a witch. There are several words for witch, and each has a different connotation. So one is wiedźma or jędza, which is negative, frightening connotation. It's a woman, a figure that cannot be trusted. But wiedźma also comes from the word wiedza, which means knowledge. So she's the one who knows. Another word, czarownica. Czarownica is the one who can make magic, black or white. In today's language, it's used even now, and it means it got a positive connotation now. It sort of means like a capable woman that it can make magic. And then there's word wróżka, which means the one who predict the future, foretell the future. All right, well, we are we are not going to have time for the fairy tale as I envisioned it. Maybe we should, or maybe maybe it's good time for questions.
Okay, we will move
it-
to questions, comments and questions. And people should use the raise hand function. And we have Stephen Wong.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I really appreciate it, especially your accent when you were speaking Polish. It was wonderful. You really get the authenticity. So I appreciate that. I'm interested in the death aspect of Baba Yaga.
Mhm.
I had gone through a heart transplant and I was supposed to die 5 times, but I came back. So I only saw 4 phases of death. I didn't get the 5th one. Maybe that's when I die, then I'll figure it out. But one was pulverizing, which is this dark thing. Other one was very different. It's when I came back and this being came into the room. And I had all these tubes in me because of the heart transplant. As it came in, it began to move towards me and suck me towards it. Very dangerous. So since I had an experience of being a sun dancer in Buddhas, I got up in my bare feet, tubes flying, began to do the sun dance and sing the sun dance and fight. So of course, the red buzz goes, om, om. 2 doctors, 3 nurses, I think 2 assistants came in. What is going on, Mr. Wong? Right there, right there. Death is here. Fight it, dance with me. They thought I was crazy, except for this one man who began to dance with me. Then it began to recede. And then finally, the other assistant tackled me and put me back in bed and put the tubes back. I don't know if that was masculine or feminine. I don't know what it was. It was just a dark energy. I don't know if you can comment on that. I'm wondering if there's also the death aspect of the masculine. I mean, we
Yes.
do know in terms of primordial.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow, that's quite a vision you had, seeing that figure in your hospital room. Can you hear me?
I think he turned off his,
Oh,
I'd have to get him back. Yeah, you got to stay. If you want to keep conversing, you got to stay unmuted.
uh-huh.
I just sent him an unmute. We'll see what happens. Well, you can, if you have anything you want to say about it, go ahead.
Well,
But we do
it's
have
like a fairy tale, isn't it? It's just like a fairy tale, right? The figure is in your room, and then you get up and you dance with it. I mean, how wonderful.
Very
I
dangerous.
think that sounds very dangerous, but maybe lying down and feeling being sucked in is more dangerous than getting up and dancing, being
It was a
active.
fight. It was a big fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I win or I
Yeah.
lose. Yeah,
Yeah.
but thank you, because I'll look into the patriarch or the masculine aspect of death. Thank you
There are
very much.
many fairy tales with the masculine aspect of death. Yes.
Oh, I was trained in this fairy tale thing with the Von Francian. So thank you very
Okay.
much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Laura Gardner.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually a very auspicious day for this workshop because in Greece, November 16th is the night of Hecate, the
Oh, yes.
the the
Yes.
crone figure in
Yes.
that
Yes.
triple goddess figure.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's quite neat that you're talking about Baba Yaga on this night. I I'm Ukrainian, and when I was young, we called grandmother Baba or Babcha, and I was terrified by the figure, and I associated my grandmother, who was, seemed so old to me, and she had illness, and um, I was very terrified, and I would see this image of these dancing Baba Yagas in our kitchen door. It was like a multi-paned door, and it was just terrifying to me. But it's interesting on this night or day of the 16th, I had a dream last night that was quite amazing. And it was all these wild animal figures. There were lions. There was a dragon. It's interesting that you mentioned the dragon, and somebody was trying to prompt them with a flow of blood, so their bloodlust was up, and I and some companions were in this ramshackly room and trying to keep those forces out. And I'm running around saying, no, don't go outside, close the doors, lock the doors. And some figures would go out. And I was thinking, as listening to you, how we need to relate to the unconscious, but we shouldn't go out into it, and get destroyed by it. Some of these figures were going out of the container,
Yes.
and that there's the need to both relate to, but stay within a container, whether that container is the psychotherapeutic container or a remaining aspect of one's ego. It's not like we should get rid of the ego. We just need to keep it
Right.
into its own
Right.
perspective, so so yeah, this was wonderful, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Laura Crockett.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Gabrinska. Thank you for this
Hello.
fascinating story. I am a storyteller, so I want to incorporate more Eastern European and Russian stories into my repertory. So I'm very keen on this lecture. So my two questions are this. One, the rattlesnake in your pocket, which is reality. And that fits in very well with the modern slogan of reality bites. So if this snake bites you, since a rattlesnake is poisonous, what does the poison represent? What does it do?
That's a very good question. I sometimes think that snake bite is sort of a drastic awakening that one is not prepared for because it's sudden, so it's unexpected, and that's why it's terrifying, perhaps. But it's also inoculation. It can be seen symbolically as inoculation, as introducing us to something new.
Right.
So
So it can be shocking.
shocking, right?
Yes.
First of all, shocking to a new reality. And that's why I think, the Baba Yaga figure is like that too. That if you suddenly, were in a hospital room and saw Baba Yaga standing there, you would be shocked. You would
Yes.
be really shocked. Like that snake. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wouldn't want a rattlesnake in my pocket.
No,
That's for certain.
No, none of us, I think, would want that.
Yes. My second question had to do with how she sharpens her teeth, and when she's got her eye on some human meat, she has iron teeth. So my question is, what does this say about the humans that she has to toughen up to eat us?
Right. I mean, again, it's a transformation, right? It's sort of back to the cauldron. If we are reduced, pulverized to elements, it's the idea of rebirth, death and rebirth. That she, Baba Yaga, as this archetypal figure and the judge, deems us not capable of continuing the journey, and that we need to go through that very drastic transformation where we have to be reborn.
And she must do, I mean, it's hard, I guess, for a human to come to terms with that if she has to use so much power. Is that correct?
Yes, it's very hard, very
Yes.
difficult for us.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have Margaret Schrader.
Hi.
Hi.
In the last slide you showed before we went to the question answer, I just the sentence, I read this sentence, and it said, in our time, it's the intellect creating darkness.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you could speak into that a little bit. It was on the last.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you are talking
And
about.
I just honed in on that because I have that experience that I try to force a solution, doesn't.
Right, exactly. That's what Jung meant that we need to not only be the rational being, but we need the other side to bring in. We need to reconnect with the other side of us, the other part of us. It's otherwise the mind can sort of
Yeah.
become self-involved, and it's the healing is in nature, and therefore we need the connection to nature. And Baba Yaga represents nature. Therefore,
sometimes things happen and everybody wants to know why, but there's new life after, you have to look.
right.
Thank you.
So, thank you for your question.
Oh, that's the last question. I was really glad that you gave the meaning of the two words Baba and Yaga, because I was thinking that the Yiddish word Baba which is a nice grandmother, there must be a relationship etymologically between the words Baba and Baba.
Yes.
But the Yiddish Baba is not a Yaga. It's just a Baba.
No.
And that's what I am.
You are
And
Baba.
Yiddish is from the same countries, the same Eastern Europe
Yes,
countries.
absolutely.
Yes, so that's what I am, but
Oh,
just the Baba part.
it's nice to be a Baba.
Yes. Well, no, yeah. So I guess there are no more questions, and we'll have to have you back to get more details in the future. And thank you so much. Wait, whoops, we
Thank you.
just got one more question. Let's just go with Hermenia, one of our longtime members. Go ahead, Hermenia.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I have a lot of interest in Baba Yaga, and I was wondering if you have anything to say about the relationship of the archetypal aunt in myth and in dreams and Baba Yaga. Is there a connection between them, a transformation that is evident from one to the other?
Not as such, because these figures in the fairy tales, these figures are very interrelated. So being called auntie, being called grandmother, it's being called Vasilisa. In some fairy tales, Vasilisa is the daughter of, or is anyway related to Baba Yaga herself. So these terms are not, they just indicate relationship, connection, a connection.
A feminine
But
connection.
a feminine, yes,
Oh,
exactly.
yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a nice way to end, with the feminine connection. So thank you so much. And we take December off, but I hope to see everybody in January. And thank you again very, very much for a really interesting talk, Kornelia.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.